Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Mars in Sagittarius or Mars in the 9th house. My name is Brandon. This is part of a much larger series I'm doing here on YouTube, where I go over every single planet and every single sign and house, and this is specifically the Mars in Sagittarius and Mars in the 9th house video. So this is my Sagittarius week of videos that I am putting out here. I've done everything prior to Sagittarius as well as prior to the 9th house. So I have a playlist down below. You're welcome to check that out if you have anything prior to Sagittarius, so anything Aries through Scorpio planet-wise, as well as 1st through 8th house planet placement-wise. And so there are always going to be videos down there that you're welcome to check out to get a better idea of what else is going on within your chart. And as it relates to this specific video, it's going to be kind of broken down into a couple of different portions. If you watch any of my other videos here, you know kind of the format I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to specifically talk about first what Mars means within astrology. Then after that, I'm going to talk about specifically Mars in Sagittarius, and then I'm also going to talk about Mars in the 9th house. You're welcome to look down below at those timestamps to check out specifically when I talk about what. So feel free to check out down there. I am going to kind of do some shameless plugs here as well. Obviously, if you guys are interested in anything with me, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, all of those things. Those are helping me out. And obviously, everything to book with me is down below. And that's pretty much it. This is such a fun series. And also, too, if you don't know, if you have your Mars in Sagittarius, there's also a link down there that you can check out to generate your charts and get a better idea of that. So make sure to check that out as well. And then that I think is all the logistical things to just kind of get everything started here. And yeah, I really love this series. It's super, super fun. And so if you have your Mars in Sagittarius, you want to learn about someone that has Mars in Sagittarius, watch this video. And then of course, if there's any other placements you have that are prior to this, make sure to check out the playlist down below. And then eventually the other videos will be coming out as the subsequent seasons kind of happen. So yeah, so without further ado, let's talk about specifically what Mars means within astrology. All right, so we have Mars within astrology. So Mars in astrology it's this glyph right here. So it is typically associated with what we tend to see in society as the male symbol. And the reason that Mars is kind of associated with that is because it has a lot to do with the assertion of energy. It has a lot of connection related to war, anything that is like masculine, anything that is cutting, anything that is fiery and flamed. Mars is all about those things. Anything that's anger, as well as anything that's motivating, anything that's inspiring, and anything that is about physical energy. And when I say physical energy, I literally mean like working out, using energy, using force. The use of force, the use of power are all kind of Martian qualities in and of themselves. Mars's placement in the chart is going to have a lot of relevancy for a couple of different reasons. It is considered to be a more difficult planet. It's considered to be a more malefic planet is the term that's used. And that essentially means that wherever this planet is at, it's going to, and this is more so related to the house placement than the actual sign to some degree, but it's typically indicative of area of life that is going to be kind of aggravating or kind of irritating. But in the same vein, Mars also wants to motivate you. So this is also what gets you up in the morning, what gives you the energy, how you motivate yourself, how you go after your goals. And it does show areas of productivity as well as areas of struggle. And that's the same thing you're going to see with the other malefic, which is Saturn. Except it's a little bit on the heavier, slower side. Mars's transits are a lot quicker than Saturn. Mars takes about 2.5 years to go through the zodiac. Whereas for Saturn, it takes about 14 times that, and it takes about 28 years or so to go through the entire zodiac. So it is a little bit of a longer return on investment with Saturn versus Mars. But as for this video, we are specifically talking about Mars, and that is the focus of where we're at, meaning that Mars does have a lot to do with our energy, our willpower, especially our willpower, how we motivate ourselves, how we fight for what we want, what inspires us, what angers us, what we're passionate about, right? That's a lot of what Mars is really pushing towards. It also has to do with our libido as well, what we are really wanting to kind of pursue, like how kind of heated we feel, right? And this heat can be both like an actual anger or a passion. It can also be, you know, like a very like sexually charged sort of energy as well. So Mars and Venus are both kind of sexual in nature, or just like relational in nature as well. But they're also about this kind of back and forth, and this kind of very complementary energy. So learning your Venus and your Mars and in the same time is also really important. And seeing if your Venus and Mars have any aspects, or what your Venus and Mars placements are at, if they're supporting one another, those sorts of things, what else is going on there. And Mars is going to show you a lot of what your own motivations are, your struggles are, what you want to fight for, what really makes you want to go after your goals. And Mars does have specific rulership where it rules both Aries and Scorpio. Those are the signs that traditionally rule Mars. And then Mars is considered to be exalted in Capricorn, meaning that it works at its highest. Now, if you're new to my videos, I kind of go through this as well, kind of explaining the exaltation and, you know, the dignity, essentially, of whatever planet I'm referring to. And with Mars, Mars, like I said, it rules Aries and Scorpio and is exalted in Capricorn, meaning that any sign opposite those that are in domicile or in exaltation are going to be within that kind of dignity spectrum as well. So Mars in Libra and in Taurus, so in the other signs opposite Aries and Scorpio, are going to be considered to be in detriment. I've already done those videos, so you're welcome to check those out. And then Mars is considered to be exalted in Capricorn, and then it's considered to be fallen in Cancer. So this is not a video on any of those specific placements, but I have spoken on most of them outside of Mars and Capricorn, which I will be talking about next season. But I say all that just to let you know that there's like ways that Mars typically works, and you can look to Mars in Aries and Mars in Scorpio as well as Mars in Capricorn to get a better idea. But ultimately, looking at every single Mars sign is going to definitely help you kind of understand what motivates you and how you go after your goals. And if this is your Mars sign, specifically Sagittarius, I would urge you to watch through this as well. That's more than likely why you're here, obviously, but because there's different ways that Mars works in Sagittarius that it doesn't work in other signs, you know, like Cancer, Libra, Leo, anything like that, right? It's gonna have different sorts of ways that it's gonna work. And then Mars's house placement, like I said, is going to have a little bit more of a aggravating factor to it, a little bit more of an angered factor. And then as it relates to the Mars house placement as well, I'll probably talk about this again when I get to the Mars house placement, but it is important to note whether you are a day chart or a night chart, meaning you were literally born during the day or born during the night, because Mars's placement will be more beneficial and more kind of difficult depending upon what time of day you're born. So if you're born during the day, Mars is considered to be more of a malefic planet, more of kind of like an aggravated kind of force, versus if you're born at night, it's going to be more of like a constructive kind of force in that regard. And that's on the idea of sect, where we kind of work with what energies work more prominently in those specific times of day. So just know that that's kind of another technique to see if this Mars is particularly prominent. And then of course, if you are an Aries rising or a Scorpio rising or are a prominent Aries sun or Scorpio sun, your Mars placement is going to have a lot of relevancy and a lot of importance. So if any of those kind of fit into this story for you, definitely pay attention to those things, and it's going to have more relevancy in and of itself. So yeah, that's pretty much all I feel like I need to say here without going into too much about Mars and Sagittarius, but funny enough, that's the next part. So we're going to talk about Mars and Sagittarius, and what it means if you have that placement, and what you can see with Mars and Sagittarius. All right, so we have Mars in the sign of Sagittarius. So this Mars sign, like I had said in the previous portion about Mars, there is no like specific dignity that it really kind of has within the sign of Sagittarius. It does have support from the sign of Aries, right? So it is able to kind of see Aries, so there is kind of some support in that regard. But in just the kind of traditional dignity that we tend to use with Mars ruling Aries and ruling Scorpio and being exalted in Capricorn, it doesn't have any like real strong connections to those specific signs. Now, Mars, like I said earlier, is a lot about like your willpower, what makes you want to fight, what makes you want to go after what you want to get. And when it's in Sagittarius, this is a fire sign, right? And so when we see Mars in a fire sign, when it's in Aries or Leo, it's all about kind of like the act of motivation, the act of inspiration. There's a lot of like fire is this energy that is naturally kind of moving and expanding and doing things, right? So when Mars is in a fire sign, no matter what that may be, It is all about kind of like sharing of one's light, sharing of one's motivations, sharing of one's sort of like drive and passion and anger and all those Martian things that I talked about in the previous portion. It's all about kind of bringing that out, right? And so the thing about Mars and Sag in general has a lot to do with just this idea of learning from something, right? Learning and exploring and really kind of having this idea in your mind that you want something, but it's because you believe in it. You believe in what you're doing. So Mars in Sagittarius has a lot of faith, typically, what it's going for. If it doesn't have that faith, it needs to ensure that it has a strong sense of faith that it is following. So when we think about the idea of this phrase of a leap of faith, that's a very Mars and Sagittarius sort of thing, Mars Jupiter, where you just do it because you want to do it and you believe in yourself and you believe in something. It's also similar to Mars and Pisces, but a little bit different. But when we see Mars in Sag, there is this just like, I'm going to do it, and it just kind of works out, right? Sagittarius placements have this quality of things just kind of working out for them, where specifically Mars is like what you do, what you accomplish, what you're passionate about, what you feel that drive to do. Typically, if it is, something that is faith-based or something that has meaning to you, which is typically, I mean, that's what most Mars placements need to believe in what they're doing. But Mars and Sagittarius really needs to do that. They need to find the meaning behind that move they're making, right? And so there can be this really interesting cultural kind of belief system that is instilled into the decision-making process. So for example, someone whose family belief systems is really what motivates you, or some higher knowledge really inspires you. That's similar to Mars in the other Jupiter ruled sign in Pisces, but very different for different reasons, because it's a water sign. But Mars in Sag is like, I want to do this thing, I want to try this thing, I want to take this leap of faith and really just try because I believe I can do this. And if they don't, the thing about Mars and Jupiter is a lot of it is about this idea of specifically, going and believing in yourself after you've accomplished whatever you've taken that risk to do. So there's a lot of risk taking here and kind of betting on yourself, betting on your own ability, believing in yourself. There's a lot of that self-concept, that self-belief is so important for Mars and Sagittarius because that is what really inspires you to go after what you want in your life. You are really just a person that's like, I want this thing, and I believe that I'm deserving of this thing, but I have to put in the effort and do this stuff. Now, with Mars in a mutable sign, being Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces, or Gemini, there's this quality with Mars in a mutable sign where it can kind of get a little bit too scattered. When it's Mars in a fire sign that's mutable, being Sagittarius, they can start a bunch of different things because they believe everything is kind of has meaning, right? There can be that aspect too with Mars and Sag where there's almost an abundance of meaning that they find in everything that they do. And so nothing really sticks because they're always finding something new to believe in or something new to go towards, right? Now, and that's why I think when you have Sagittarius placements, having a belief, having a ideology that you're kind of driven towards is probably the most important thing for you to have and for you to keep and for you to follow. So it's a lot about following your inner guidance, following your inner light, following your inspiration, and allowing that to teach you more about who you are, more about what you believe in that process. So this is very much like someone who takes leap of faith and studies abroad. And then after that realizes they learned so much about themselves through that process, through going and studying something or going and learning a different culture or a different approach or different ideology or different worldview. Sagittarius is a lot about that. And you'll see this the same thing with Mars in the ninth, but Mars in the ninth is a little bit different because it's a house placement and it can play out a bunch of different ways. When it comes to Sagittarius as well, it's really important to look at your Jupiter placement to see what's going on in that regard, so we can have a better idea of specifically what it is that Jupiter and your beliefs are kind of focused around, because Mars and Sagittarius with a Jupiter that is really strong versus a Jupiter that is, in a different or more difficult position is going to indicate a need to, depending upon Jupiter's placement, it's going to indicate a need to really work through those belief systems, right? If you have a really strong Jupiter and you have a Mars and Sagittarius, you're going to have a very strong faith backing you versus if you have, let's say you have Jupiter in Scorpio, you're going to need to really work on purifying those belief systems before you use them as fuel or motivation towards your goals. So that's why Jupiter's placement is really important for specifically Mars and Sagittarius, because it's going to help you understand and kind of put together the other pieces and how they kind of all interconnect to one another. And you'll tend to see kind of a pattern pretty quickly as you go through and read. Typically, your own chart is how it typically starts, and you'll see these kind of like layers that tend to kind of show as you go through that. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with these videos, is kind of lead you to connect to the other ones that are a part of this so that you can get a better idea. And with Mars and Sagittarius, it's really about, like I said, finding what you believe in and following that. What is your belief of why are you here? What are you here to do, right? What are you here to fight for? What are you here to create? What are you here to inspire in others? That's the other thing. Mars and Sag has a very inspirational quality to it. I talked about this with the moon in Sagittarius as well, but the Mars in Sagittarius has like this like preacher energy to it. But this is way more indicative of people that are in debates or are in politics or public policy or things, people that are broadcasting information as well. There can be an aspect of a podcast or a very large messaging, similar to Mars and Gemini, but the Mars and Gemini is a little bit more centralized, meaning that it's more like within its own kind of circle, within its own sort of space. There's plenty of Mars and Geminis that do have a lot of like ability to have their message heard. But the difference between Gemini and Sag is that Gemini is more of like our local community as well as our like kind of more internal story, versus Mars and Sag is more of like this publication, this mass media, this mass production, this kind of foreign or cultural kind of worldview or kind of like larger thing. It's publishing, it's printing. It's not necessarily the gossip and the talk and all that writing process. It's more of just the outlet. So this is where you'll see like a lot of Mars and Sagittarius. And it's also true for like a lot of media as well, and specifically the media I'm thinking about is like those Jubilee videos where they have like one person debating against a bunch of different people. That's a very Mars Sagittarius, but also I mean to mention this, it's very Pluto Sagittarius as well. And I typically don't mention Pluto in these videos, but if you are a Gen Z and you're watching this and you have your Mars in Sagittarius, you will also have your Pluto in Sagittarius, which that in and of itself, I think, is why a lot of people that have like think about when I see the image of like the Jubilee videos, a lot of them are Gen Z, and it does give a lot of Sag placements, and I know that there's a lot of power in that Mars-Pluto conjunction. In Sagittarius, it's very much like changing the belief, changing the faith, changing the ideology. Pluto and Sag in and of itself is a very powerful placement. But with Mars there, it kind of really exacerbates that. So if you are a Gen Z watching this and you have Mars in Sagittarius, know that your Mars is much more powerful. And I would recommend, to some degree, looking to see what your... Potentially watching the Mars Scorpio video can help you a little bit with that. But also looking, like, now we get a lot more layers into this, and so I would either recommend reaching out to me and seeing how that story has been for you, because I would love to help you with that, or as well as just get, reach out and connect to different astrologers and see what can help. Obviously, I would love to help you, but if you have that specific placement, then we're getting a lot more layers into this. So I'm trying not to get too many layers for you guys, but because it is a Pluto placement, there's a lot of layers that I don't specifically go into in these videos. I have a whole private practice, well, not private practice, but a private consultations that I do for those. So that's a whole different quality of this. But point being is that if you have your Mars in Sagittarius and you're a Gen Z, there's a lot of like kind of political kind of ideological breakthroughs that you're trying to do personally, right, with Mars there. So I'm really interested to see if you have that placement, how that has been for you with Mars and Pluto and Sagittarius. There's a lot of power that you have, a lot of beliefs you're trying to break through, a lot of really different worldviews that you're trying to change. And Mars and Sag just has like a very... It can also be legal too. There can be some legal kind of battles with this, with Mars and Sagittarius, and there is something around Mars and Sagittarius around like potentially like loans for school and loans for traveling and study. So there's something around that too. So be very clear on what your ideologies are, what your reasoning is, what your meaning is behind taking those actions if you do that. Mars and Sagittarius doesn't necessarily mean like legal issues. It can in certain avenues, but not necessarily in this example. And that's why it's important to look at the entirety of the chart to see, get a better idea of what else is going on with it, with Mars kind of having its own sort of aspects, right? Obviously, if you have Mars Pluto, there's a lot of stuff there, right? If we had Mars Pluto in the first house, that would be someone I would be more indicative of like a legal issue, or Mars Pluto in the seventh house. All right, so a lot of different ways this can play out, and so point is with Mars Sagittarius, find something to believe in, find something to inspire you, right? Inspire others through your actions too, because that's another thing. Sagittarius is very inspirational to others, and they really want to collect a bunch of different experiences, a bunch of different qualities, a bunch of different beliefs and approaches. So Mars and Sag and I've said this with the other one with Moon and Sag, but Moon and Sag is a little bit more on this than Mars and Sag, but there can be a quality of like collecting of degrees and different worldviews and different philosophies. There can be a collection of that, but Mars can kind of make that a little bit aggravating as well. So there's kind of like an aggravation towards like, what is the truth? What is the answer? Where is this at? And it's almost like you're always looking outside of yourself with Mars and Sagittarius, but not necessarily inside of yourself and inside your own motivations and seeing the meaning that your life has unfolded. So the meaning of your life is going to unfold over time, and it's going to come through you just simply continuing to do and continuing to believe in yourself and saying, okay, I believe I can accomplish this because I've done this before, and kind of those sorts of different qualities. Just know that that's part of this kind of story with Mars and Sag, of kind of going after different sorts of things that spark interest in you and spark intrigue and can teach you something. There can also be some very interesting relationships with mentorships and college professors, and anyone that is teaching you something and as an authority in some information, some guru, some mentor. Anyone that's higher education is going to be Sagittarius, and this is more so true with Mars in the ninth than Mars and Sag, but it can play a factor in Mars and Sag where there's like a difficulty with higher education and higher learning, and maybe finishing that as well. There can be a quality there where there's almost a inability to do that because you're fighting with maybe what you believe in, what you want to study, or what path you want to take, and or just in general having issues with college and higher education, or just traveling too. There can be an issue with foreign travel or foreign conversations or foreign language as well. There can be some cultural kind of battles that you yourself are kind of in some way brought into. And I don't mean this in like a literal like cultural like my family versus your family thing. It can be that extreme, but I think it's more of the difference of opinion, the difference of belief, right? So this is someone who, like if you have Mars and Sagittarius, and let's say Mars rules your seventh, or even, Mars is somehow connected to your seventh house, right? Let's say Mars and Sagittarius is in the seventh house. This can be, especially if Pluto's involved with this, there's a whole other layer of that. But in certain alignments, you could see that there could be a difference between your partner's beliefs and your beliefs, and your families can believe very, very differently. And that's something you'll see a lot when we get Jupiter involved with a lot of things, is you'll see a lot of differences of belief systems, because that's what Sagittarius and Jupiter are really about, teaching us like the full scope and the full meaning and the full expansiveness of whatever it is that Sagittarius and Jupiter are kind of connected to. In this specific one, it's Mars, which is what you can do and what you can accomplish and what you feel like going after. So there can be this overwhelm of options. There can also be this overdoing it, kind of like beating a dead horse in a way. It can be a Mars and Sagittarius kind of story of kind of overly doing it, overly speaking about it, overly, just doing something past its expiration. There can be a quality with that as well. I don't typically see that as prominently with Mars and Sag, because they typically can just kind of pivot really easily because it is a mutable Mars. I see this more with like a Mars and Leo, if anything. But my point is in saying that like there's an aspect of Mars and Sag that is capable of kind of like believing in too many different things, so that there can be this aspect of needing freedom and feeling too constrained by certain belief systems or certain people's past, or what people believe in and what people believe you should be doing, or what you believe you should be doing. So that's why your faith and your belief needs to be very, very tight, and very much understood, and know and really, really honestly know that takes time to figure that out. That takes time to be patient, to understand what you believe in, what you want to do, where you want to go, how you want to be, right? How you want to go after things, right? That's Mars. Mars is how you do things, how you get up in the morning. And some days you might want to get up and, you know, go to the library, or you might want to get up and go on a drive or a run or go read a book or go take a class. Like there can be this kind of like, I want to go and like learn pottery, and I want to go and, you know, take a sushi like cooking class or whatever. There could be this like kind of like difference of hobbies as well with Mars there. So just know that like there's a lot of different qualities that you have available to you. It's all about you prescribing meaning to them and finding what is the most meaningful, which is once again why Jupiter is really important within your own natal chart to kind of get a better layer of what else is going on. And then of course, once again, if you do have your Mars in Sagittarius and you are a Gen Z watching this, there is a lot more depth that you are searching for, that people that don't have Mars, Pluto, and Sag are not, right? You're wanting the real truth, right? The most truest truth that is out there, and it's gonna come through you really unraveling all of those beliefs and all of those thoughts and those ways that people looked at you and the ways that, you know, you perceived belief and meaning in life, and that's gonna be hard. It's hard to follow faith and follow religion and follow ideologies and follow beliefs just blindly. And I think with Mars and Sag, as well as Mars and Pisces, for different reasons, they are both forced to connect back to their own belief system and utilize that as their kind of guiding force and guiding light and guiding kind of inspiration. And so that's, I think, one of the issues with Mars, and not issues, but one of the biggest struggles with Mars and Sag is really finding out what you believe in and how that's helping you or hindering you from going after your goals, and how the beliefs around you are making it difficult for you to go after things. It's very similar to Mars and Gemini, where Mars and Gemini has 12,000 people in their ear talking about a bunch of different opinions, and they don't know which one's truth, right? Or what really is their story, what they want to say. And with Mars Sag, it's a bigger version of that. So it's like the bigger, more philosophical questions, the more theological questions, the more, you know, there's so much like philosophical exploration that comes when we talk about Sag, and so there is a lot of like connecting a bunch of different belief systems and maybe getting overwhelmed by those options, right? Overwhelmed by too many options, too many things. That's what you can see with Mars and Sag as well. So just some little information about you. Obviously, if you are interested in anything with me, feel free to check out all my stuff down below. I have a bunch of information down there, as well as obviously look to see what else is going on in your chart. If you are a, you know, Aries or Scorpio rising, obviously this Mars placement is really, really important for you in so many different ways. So just know that that's its own avenue that needs to be explored. And then of course, if you have any other videos or any other planets in Sagittarius or anything prior, those videos are down below as well. So feel free to check those out if you do have anything prior to Sag, which I'm sure you probably will at this point. Feel free to check those out. And then obviously I love doing this. This is what I do every day. And so if you enjoy my videos, please like, comment, share, subscribe. All those things are going to help me out and continue doing this. And obviously, if you are interested with learning from me or talking with me or connecting with me or getting reading with me, all that stuff's down below as well. You're welcome to check out how to connect with me there. But yeah, that's pretty much it from Mars and Sagittarius people. And then I will leave it here, and then I'm going to go on to the last part here, which is Mars specifically in the 9th house. So we have Mars in the 9th house. So Mars in the 9th house is a specifically, I don't want to say difficult placement, but it is one that tends to lend to a lot more legal battles than Mars and Sag. Because of the fact that the 9th house does rule law. It rules legal systems, it rules the things that govern us, right? Big businesses is kind of more Capricorn, but anything that is supporting our career, supporting where we're going, supporting what we're doing, right? Supporting our place in the world. So Mars here can make that higher education or that legal kind of process to get to your career or the hindrances around that, it can make it really, really convoluted. It can make it really difficult to go through. When we have a 9th house planet that is specifically Mars, it can just be overwhelmed with legal things. But in the same vein, it can be a lawyer. Right? You could go through this process so long and so consistently that then you become, okay, now I need to be a lawyer. Now I need to advocate. I need to fight. I need to fight for people that can't fight for themselves. You can see that a lot with Mars and specifically in an air sign in the 9th house. But there is a lot of qualities here with Mars in the 9th that there is something also with mentorship that's a little bit stronger in the 9th house than it is in Sagittarius specifically, because the 9th house tends to be where we learn a lot about the bigger picture in life, right? And Mars here can make this very very difficult and very it's just battling, right? It's just fighting. It makes you fight for things. But it also can be very motivational. This is one of the placements with Mars, both Mars and Sag and Mars in the ninth, where you can be very motivational because of what you've had to go through, what you've had to kind of learn from, who you've had to learn from, and who you therefore have had to kind of unlearn from, right? So there's this aspect of with Mars in Sagittarius, there's this aspect of not necessarily reparenting, but just relearning what you believe, why you believe what you believe, and through the larger scope of law or religion or philosophy or different worldviews, different ideologies. There's kind of a fighting for worldviews here. There's definitely more of an indication here of Mars in the ninth house of like foreign legal kind of issues with residency, and this is more specifically with like a Mars with the moon, or Mars in Cancer in the ninth house. That's where I would see that pretty prominently, of like kind of like having to fight for some legal, familial, ancestral kind of thing. There's something there. But something I do want to say before I go a little bit any further in this, I have done Mars in every sign prior to this. So if you have your Mars in any sign prior to Sagittarius, which you more than likely will at this point, I would recommend you watch that video as well. Probably first, honestly, before you watch the house video, because it'll give you a better idea. I'm going to go very briefly into each Mars sign here, and what you can kind of expect for Mars in like each kind of sign, but know that like I've already kind of done these in much longer forms all over in that playlist down below. So just know that's kind of just how I go about this. Now, like I said, Mars in the ninth, there is definitely some mentorship, some higher education, some teachers that are really impactful here, specifically college professors or cultural kind of things going on that can be really, really, really impactful towards why you motivated over what you want, right? So I don't have Mars specifically in the ninth house. I do have a ninth house planet, but I don't have Mars. I have Jupiter there. So different thing, but I feel like it's relevant in this regard, where I had a teacher who very, very quickly motivated me to learn languages simply because of the impact she had on me. And I think a lot of the time, we always kind of have those teachers if we have gone through a lot of schooling, and that is very like Gemini, Sagittarius, or third and ninth. It's very much those, but you can see that more with like I said, with Jupiter, right? With Jupiter in that ninth house, that's what I specifically have, where they kind of like really impact those worldviews, impact what you want to do, impact where those things are. And for me specifically, it was a language teacher, of course, which is very like Jupiter as well. And so like someone who literally like translated for the FBI, I think that was my first language teacher, and it made language really, really cool to me and really investigative. So that's why I went after it. And the reason I say all of that is because the ninth house planets kind of can lend to stories similar to that. And I'll probably bring this up as well in this Jupiter portion, in the Jupiter ninth house video. But my point is that there is some really big impact and motivational impact, or like I'm going to do better than them, or I want to be like them, right? There can be something like that as well with Mars in the ninth house. But like I said, it is Mars, so it is going to be a little bit more gritty and a little bit more like tension and like fighty and kind of like inflammatory in a way. So anywho, so Mars in its own sign, so Mars in Aries or Scorpio in the ninth house. Scorpio is definitely going to have some, this one is going to have a very interesting relationship with religion and mentors. This one is very, 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 very prominent for people that have had to break apart from religious and ideological cultural changes. But then they do it really well because Mars in its own sign, right, in Scorpio. Mars in Aries, this is where you'll see, these are both really strong placements for Mars, obviously. So you'll see a lot of people here that, with both Mars in Aries and in Scorpio in the ninth, where they go after their own belief system and because they have to and because they need to follow that. And I think that's what Mars in the ninth ultimately wants. And you can kind of see that as you kind of look at Mars's placement as like what Mars ultimately wants. And I don't mean Mars ultimately wants as like as the sign that Mars is in. I mean Mars as the archetype of Aries and Scorpio. It wants to individuate. It wants to be its own person. It wants to have its own belief, its own thought, its own ideology, its own worldview, right? So if you put Mars in its own sign in Aries or Scorpio in the ninth, it's gonna get what it wants, and what it wants is freedom of belief and freedom of choice and freedom of perspective. And so it's gonna be very like, yes, I want this thing, I want this thing, I want this thing, let me go get it. And it's gonna kind of break through those barriers. When you have a strong Mars, when it's Mars in Scorpio or Aries, this is where you can see a lot more of the prominent debating, philosophical, legal debating. This is also where you can see more of the legal battles as well, that are stronger. But typically when Mars is its own sign, it does pretty well. So those legal battles will definitely help aid you in what you are meant to do, and what you're meant to kind of understand to help others as well, and help you kind of find your own worldview, find your own belief, those things, sorts of things. Now, moving on from that, we have Venus in the ninth, Mars and the Venus ruled sign in the ninth, rather. So this is where Mars is going to obviously not do as well, because it's more focused on others and it's not focused on itself. So this is where you can see both with Mars in Taurus and Mars in Libra, more so Mars in Libra, where they're kind of caught in the worldview of other people, the beliefs of other people. They're following someone else. And that can still be beneficial, right? They kind of need someone to kind of help them through those things. But it can be this kind of like following, someone else, and never really knowing what your belief is. And that's once again what Mars really wants in the ninth house. It wants to individuate. It wants to have its own, it has its desire to be, to know what its truth is, to know what its meaning is, to know what its purpose is. That's a lot of what the ninth house is about. It's all those bigger questions we ask, right? And so Mars is like, I want those things, but I need to keep the peace, right? And so this can be a really great for moderating debates as well. I don't know why I'm on like a debate kick here with the ninth house, but there could be like a sense of moderating debates, or that would be really good actually. Like genuinely, that's a very like Mars Libra ninth house, like moderating debates or being on some sort of panel. For like a nonprofit or some sort of influence with Mars in the ninth. There's like, and specifically in Libra and also in Aquarius, any air sign Mars in the ninth is going to just kind of have like a social kind of like sitting around a round table kind of energy. You think about like the UN, that's very Mars and Sag in the ninth house, or like Mars in Aquarius more so in the ninth house, or Mars in Capricorn in the ninth house. There's a lot of that, like the energy of like a round table meeting of a bunch of different worldviews. That's very Mars in Libra, Aquarius as well. Yeah, there's a lot of that there. Mars in Taurus, the other Venus ruled sign. This one's definitely gonna have, there's some financial stuff here with what they study, what they go after. There's something around there. Maybe debts with having to pay for school or pay their way or pay for what they believe in, right? There's definitely something there. There's some interesting protection of assets, protection of beliefs with that. That's the other thing too, Mars in the ninth. I didn't even speak on this because I spoke on so much of like Mars breaking through the beliefs. There can also be a defensiveness of beliefs, right? Where they feel like they need to defend and protect a culture. That's a really strong part of Mars in the ninth house. This is where you would see it more with like Mars in Cancer, but Mars in general in the ninth house can also defend one's belief, defend one's worldview, defend one's culture really strongly. When we have ninth house planets, there's like a cultural focus, and if we have Mars, Mars is all about, it's about severing, yes, about severing and breaking away and individuating, but it's also about protecting and about fighting and about advocating and about really, really pushing both for means of pushing someone away and also pushing through something. There's a lot about just willpower. And so there can be this aspect of cultural protection that Mars is in the ninth house, where it's a protection of one's belief and worldview. And especially, like I said, Mars in Cancer is really big on that one, where I could see that would be someone that's like really, really protective of their homeland and their family. And Mars in Cancer already has that, but there's like a cultural layer to this of like a legal battle with their family. That's like a really interesting one with Mars Cancer in the ninth. Then when it comes to, I kind of skipped around, but then when it comes to Mars in, I guess I could do the moon then. I do the moon. I already kind of said the moon everywhere anyway, but Mars in the solar sign, so Mars in the other light sign, which is Leo, in the ninth house. This is definitely child law. There's something about child protective laws here. There's some about DCFS. That's also similar to Mars and Cancer, but Mars and Cancer for different reasons. Mars and Leo is very much about protection of children and protection of I'm trying to think. Yeah, protection of one's light, protection of purity, of joy, right? And in the 9th house, it's like protection of maybe inner child beliefs, right? Something about like exploring the wonder of life again, like reigniting that wonder with Mars in the 9th house in Leo. That's an interesting one. I think there's a lot of really interesting leadership too. There's something with Mars and Leo in the 9th that has like a very much like world leader energy, but world leader is kind of intense, but Mars and Leo just kind of has that. It has kind of like a leadership, like kingly royalty energy of like, look at me, I'm the one it's all about me. And in the 9th, it can be this very like political kind of positioning, or kind of like on a podium kind of thing. Public speaking, motivational speaking can be very Mars and Leo. Same with Mars and Gemini, Mars and Virgo, those like other mercurial signs, but they're for different reasons. Mars and Leo is more of like, this is who I am, be proud of who I am, this is what I am, that's sort of the thing in the 9th house. And there's an aspect of teaching through that. And this is where you can see also like college professors can be Mars and Leo in the 9th. Mars in the 9th also just kind of has that as well. But Mars and Leo is motivated by itself and what it believes it like is, right? What do I want? Where do I want to go? What do I want to be? And it's all like very self-focused and very heart-based or heart-centered, as well as very inner child version. So there can be some, likely with Mars and Leo in the 9th, there's some, this is similar to Saturn in the 9th with Leo, where there's like and if you have Leo placements, definitely watch the Leo videos. But my point is there's a childlike worldview that needs to kind of be unraveled and worked through with that to kind of help you go through your goals. Mars in a Mercury ruled sign, this is going to have like the quality of it, of just really speaking about what you believe in and kind of chatting. Like this is once again, more so Mars Gemini is that like kind of round table kind of chat energy, kind of having all these different forums and different conversations. This is very much like the keyboard warrior in a way, but that's not like a bad thing. It's not a hidden thing. I think Mars and Gemini, Mars and Virgo can have that kind of like really logistical kind of thing. They could definitely write laws, or they could analyze laws, or kind of help kind of with medical and medical thing is also connected to Virgo, but there's like a medicinal analysis, or kind of like a health related analysis too. There'd be a lot of teaching that you do, just Mars in the 9th in general, not necessarily Mars in Gemini or Virgo. There is an aspect of that where there's like you're teaching some sort of story, you're teaching some sort of approach, or some sort of healing thing, or some sort of quality to improve someone's life. And there is an aspect of writing and organization. So this is very librarian is Mars Virgo in the 9th. Like that's very studious. Mars Virgo is just a very studious placement. I love Mars Virgo, I really do. Mars and Gemini is a little bit different. This is where you're going to have like the more chatty, public, podcasty, talking, lots of content. All the Mars Geminis I know that I know from social media have a lot of content they make, and they don't get tired of it, which is insane to me, but that's just its own thing. But in the 9th house, there's with this Mars and Gemini in the 9th, there's some childhood story, similar to Mars and Leo. There's some childhood story that's really, really relevant for your belief system. And maybe you're fighting with your siblings, and maybe some like sibling debacle, sibling issues. That's Mars and Gemini. But in the 9th, it becomes legal, it becomes larger. It becomes some mentorship, learning from your siblings or learning from other people can be its own thing. Mars and Virgo, that's a very studious placement in the 9th house. I like that. There's a lot of, but that's where you can also see like maybe not knowing what you want to study. And what is the most practical thing to study? What's the best route to get there? That's what I tend to see with Mars and Virgo in general. But Mars and Virgo in the 9th can have that, where it's like, I don't know what I believe, and I don't know who I should learn from. That kind of overwhelm there. And then Mars in a Jupiter ruled sign, obviously Mars in Sagittarius. It's just kind of doubling up on everything I've spoken about here, which I don't really feel like I need to really go into all of that. But that's just a really strong desire to figure out your beliefs, what you believe in, why you're here. There's definitely going to be some legal mentorship. It's going to be kind of a lot louder if you have Mars in Sagittarius. Also, if you have Mars in Sagittarius, you are an Aries rising. So there is a lot of importance of this specific placement here, where this is really important for you. If you have this placement, this is your chart ruler. So know that if this is your placement with Mars and Sagittarius in the 9th house, as an Aries rising, you are going to have a lot of you are bringing yourself into the 9th house. So your belief systems are even more important than average, and your ability to individuate and your ability to really find your own truth is going to be really, really important, especially because you are an Aries rising, right? There's a lot about the individuation process that comes with being an Aries rising, and so really, really look to your Mars aspects and look to your Jupiter aspects 100%, because that's going to help you a lot kind of unravel from all of the complexities that Mars is causing in that 9th house. And then Mars in the other Jupiter world sign, Pisces. This is where you'll kind of get lost into other things and kind of just not have boundaries. Like Mars in Pisces, it's very boundaryless. It's very falls into stuff and doesn't really understand why it gets lost in those things. It kind of loses itself. But there's an aspect of Mars in Pisces that still works. Because it is losing itself to then find more of itself. It kind of finds itself in like the reflections of the water and in these little like dream-like sequences, or these little moments that just feel like they're sprinkled with fairy dust and have this like this beauty to them, this artistry to them. It's really cool. Mars and Pisces, I can't wait to get to you guys. You guys are great. But in the 9th house, there's a lot of spiritual things here, a lot of spiritual beliefs, religion, and kind of falling into these things and not knowing how and why. And so there could be some very interesting spiritual experiences with this particular placement, but it's how you are able to separate yourself or solidify, understand yourself individually within those belief spaces. And that's an interesting one, Mars and Pisces. And then finally, Mars and Capricorn and Aquarius. These are the ones that are obviously going to have more of a business mindset to the belief. These are the lawyers as well. Mars, Virgo, Capricorn, Aquarius, all in the 9th have lawyer energy, or going to law school. Mars and Aquarius a little bit different. This is more like grant writing, nonprofit, going after your goals, and your goals that are based off society's advancement as well, going after helping people as a group, as a society, as a collective, kind of really caring about a lot of society at large. I can't wait to do the Aquarius videos because I love Aquarius energy. And then Mars and Capricorn, very, very strong here. So this is where you can see Mars wanting to have a business in anything 9th house. So this is where you can see philosophers. This is where you can see mentors, teachers, like corporate analysts are a really big thing. Corporate, like people that are really big into like corporate America are very Mars Capricorn typically, but they're just in business. They know how to do business. And in the 9th house, they could be philosophers. They could be healers. They could be teachers. They could be, mentors of some sort. Just they like to teach, they like to go after things, and they typically have a business surrounding that, or just anything that's foreign or culturally expansive, or just published. They could just be a published author, right? That's another thing with Mars in Capricorn in the 9th. There's like a publication of one's beliefs, or a business, or a solidification of one's beliefs that is like a business and becomes their brand or their thing they're supposed to do here. So it's pretty powerful. I love that one. So that's pretty much it. I've yapped a lot in this segment here. I tried to not keep these too long, but they just keep getting longer because I have Mercury in Sagittarius. So we'll get to that video tomorrow, tomorrow. So point is, there's a lot that Mars can do in the 9th house, obviously, and I hope this video is able to give you some kind of point of reference to help you understand what Mars might do for you specifically. And this video is part of, like I said, a much larger series I'm doing. Obviously, the videos for the rest of them are down below in that playlist. You're welcome to check that out and kind of bounce around these videos here and kind of see how these things kind of resonate in that regard. That's really what's important to me, is that you learn whatever you're supposed to learn from these videos, and you learn from me, and you resonate with whatever you're supposed to resonate with. And I hope this video helps literally anyone that comes across it. And helps motivate you to go after your goals and really sit with your faith, or sit with your religion, or sit with what you believe in, and utilize that as your fuel with Mars in the Sag, or Mars in the 9th. And I really, really appreciate anyone that's come across these videos. And obviously, if you like my videos, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all those things. I love doing what I'm doing here. And yeah, I love this, and I love this week. This is such a fun week. Sagittarius 9th house is such an expansive and joyous week. to record. I really, really love it, and I'm really excited to be doing this. I'm really grateful to be doing this every single day that I do. And obviously, if you guys are interested in more stuff with me, all my stuff's down below. You're welcome to check me out there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video where we talk about specifically Mercury in the 9th and Mercury in Sagittarius. So see you guys later. Bye.